We'd been planning the hike for months, more Eli than me, honestly. He always needed a plan, something to look forward to. I just needed the distraction. So when he texted one evening, "Let's finally do that trail we talked about," I said, yes, like I always did. Eli and I had been best friends since our sophomore year of college. He was the kind of guy people remembered. Bright smile, fast laugh, energy like a current pulling you in. I was quieter, more grounded, the type who listened more than I spoke. Somehow, our differences made the friendship easy. We moved through, life like opposite ends of a compass, yet always finding the same direction. The drive up to the mountains was long and winding. Eli insisted on playing his hiking playlist, mostly old rock, some indie, a few guilty pleasure pop songs he claimed were for the vibe. He drove with the windows down, one hand on the wheel, the other occasionally drumming the rhythm on the dashboard. I watched him more than I should have. I always did. It was dangerous, this quiet longing I carried. Eli had a girlfriend, Tara, serious, long-term, family-approved. I'd met her several times. She was kind, perceptive, and not oblivious. I sometimes wondered if she saw what I couldn't say. If Eli ever saw it, he never let on. The trailhead appeared like a secret unfolding from the trees. We parked, stretched, and shouldered our backpacks. "You ready to disappear for a day?" Eli asked, grinning. "Always," I replied, and meant it more than he could know. The forest welcomed us with open arms, thick with pine and damp earth. Sunlight trickled through branches like golden threads. We fell into rhythm easily, Eli leading, me keeping pace behind. He pointed out bird calls, unusual rock formations, carved initials on trees that made us laugh or cringe. I watched the way he moved, how his shoulders shifted beneath his shirt, how the sunlight caught in his hair. Every detail carved a memory I didn't want but couldn't resist keeping. As we climbed higher, the air thinned, and so did our words. There was peace in the silence, in the shared rhythm of breath and footstep. Hours passed like minutes. At one point, Eli slowed and glanced back. "You're quiet." "I'm hiking." He grinned. "No, you're thinking. There's a difference." I didn't answer. What could I say? That I was thinking about the curve of his jaw, the way his hand had lingered too long on my shoulder that morning, the smile he gave when he thought I wasn't looking. He let it go. We pressed on. We reached a wide clearing by early afternoon, where the trees opened to a view of the valley below. We dropped our packs and sat side by side, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of him. "I needed this," he said, letting out a slow breath. "Things have been heavy lately." "With Tara?" "Yeah, I don't know. She says I'm distant, like I'm not fully in it anymore." I turned my gaze to the horizon, pretending his words didn't spark something dangerous inside me. "Are you?" He didn't answer right away. "I don't know what I'm feeling anymore." There it was, a thread, something fragile, something that might unravel everything or lead somewhere we'd never dared to walk before. I looked at him, really looked. His brow furrowed, lips pressed in a line. Not the Eli who cracked jokes to fill silences. Not the Eli who laughed away. Discomfort. This was someone else. Raw. Real. "What do you want to feel?" I asked. He turned to me then, eyes sharp and searching. But before he could speak, a sudden gust of wind stirred the trees, breaking the moment like glass. He looked away, pulled his jacket tighter, and said, "Let's keep going. We still have an hour to the ridge." I nodded. We stood, and the spell broke. But something had shifted. The trail narrowed as we moved deeper into the forest. Shadows grew longer, and the light thinned into late afternoon gold. Eli walked ahead again, but slower now, as if waiting for me to catch up. As I did, he said softly, "Do you ever think about what if things had been different between us?" My breath caught, but I kept walking. All the time, I said without looking at him. He didn't reply. The silence between us was louder than any words. By the time we reached the ridge, the sun was dipping low, painting everything in amber and fire. We stood at the edge, looking down at the world we'd left behind, side by side, shoulders nearly, brushing. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. But in that silence, I knew we'd stepped into something we couldn't easily return from. The path beyond the ridge sloped downward, narrow and uneven, guiding us deeper into the wilderness. The trees grew denser here, their branches arching overhead like an old cathedral. We didn't talk much after the overlook. Something had changed, shifted subtly but undeniably. I felt it in the way Eli walked a little slower, kept glancing, back at me as though he wanted to speak but didn't trust the words. We found the waterfall by accident. It wasn't on the map, at least not one we'd been following. A faint sound of rushing water led us off the marked trail until the trees opened to a moss-covered clearing where the stream cascaded down a jagged wall of rock into a crystal pool. Eli whistled low, impressed. Guess getting lost has its perks. We shrugged off our packs and sat near the edge of the pool, stretching our legs over damp earth. The sun filtered through the trees in slanted beams, making the water shimmer. I watched as Eli pulled off his boots, dipping his feet into the freezing stream with a laugh that echoed off the rocks. It was the first genuine laugh I'd heard from him all day. I didn't join him. I sat back, arms wrapped around my knees, trying to calm the tremor in my chest. The stillness of the place, the isolation, it pressed on my thoughts, narrowed them, until all I could focus on was the shape of him in front of me. How familiar he was. How distant. Why haven't you dated anyone since college? He asked suddenly, breaking the quiet. I blinked, caught off guard. That's random. Is it? He asked, still looking at the water. I just realized you never talk about anyone. You've never even mentioned a crush. I hesitated. Maybe I just keep things to myself. He looked up, meeting my eyes. Even from me? That stung more than I expected. Especially from you. The words lingered in the air between us. I could see them land on him, soft as feathers but heavy with meaning. His face changed, just slightly, but enough that I knew he understood. Something had cracked open. He pulled his feet from the water, grabbed a towel from his bag, and sat beside me. We didn't touch, but the space between us buzzed. You remember that night junior year? He said quietly. The party where you got drunk off 2 beers and tried to convince me that the moon was fake? I laughed in spite of myself. You never let me live that down. You were different that night. Softer. I always wondered if it was the alcohol or something else. I didn't answer. My pulse thundered in my ears. I think I knew, he continued, almost whispering. About you. About how you felt. I closed my eyes. And you never said anything? I wasn't sure you wanted me to, he said. And maybe I didn't want to hear it. I turned to face him. Do you want to hear it now? He didn't look away. Yes. The words sat between us like a stone in the stream, unmoving, undeniable. I exhaled slowly. I've loved you since the first time you called me your best friend, and I've hated myself for it ever since. Eli's breath caught. I saw it in the way his shoulders tensed, the flicker in his eyes. But he didn't pull away. Instead, he reached over, his hand brushing mine, not a grab, not a demand. Just a quiet gesture that said he heard me, that maybe he felt something too. I don't know what this is, he said. I don't know what it means, but I feel it, here. He touched his chest lightly. I wanted to lean in, to close the space, but I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I asked, what about Tara? He looked down. I don't know. She's been good to me, but this feels different. Like something I've been ignoring for too long. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full. heavy with understanding. Eventually, Eli stood and stretched. "We should set up camp soon, sun's dipping." I nodded, my thoughts, a tangle of relief and panic. We pitched the tent by the clearing close to the waterfall as twilight settled into a deep blue hush. Dinner was quiet, just the sound of utensils scraping metal bowls, the crackle of a small fire, the occasional call of an owl overhead. Later, as we lay in our sleeping bags on opposite sides of the tent, I stared at the fabric above me, tracing invisible patterns with my eyes. Every breath I took felt like a question. Then Eli spoke. "Do you ever wish you could undo things?" "Sometimes," I replied. "But not this." A pause, then, softly, "Me neither." I didn't sleep much that night, but I didn't regret anything either. For the first time, something real had surfaced. Something I didn't have to hide. And yet, I could feel the weight of what might come next, pressing against the fabric of the moment, waiting to unravel. Morning came with a chill. The forest was wrapped in mist, soft and gray, turning the clearing into something dreamlike. I woke first, as I often did, and lay still, listening to Eli's steady breathing from the other side of the tent. He hadn't moved much during the night, but something between us had, invisible and irreversible. I crawled out quietly, letting the flap fall closed behind me. The air bit at my skin, but it helped clear my mind. I stood for a long time, staring at the stream, wondering what would happen when he woke. Wondering if, in the light of day, last night would be something he'd want to forget. But he didn't pretend. When he stepped out of the tent minutes later, still groggy, hair tousled and eyes squinting in the morning light, he gave me a look, gentle, measured, that told me everything we'd said was still with him. Not undone, not erased. We ate breakfast in silence, not strained, just quiet. Eli kept stealing glances at me, then looking away. I didn't press. I couldn't. Whatever space he needed, I would give it. But my heart beat a little faster each time our eyes met. As we packed up, he asked, "What happens now?" I zipped my sleeping bag with care, trying to keep my voice even. "What do you mean?" "I mean, this. Us. Yesterday." I hesitated. "I don't know." He nodded slowly. "Neither do I." We started the return hike mid-morning. The trail looked different coming back, as if the forest had rearranged itself. Or maybe it was just me. Everything felt heightened. The smell of pine, the dampness underfoot, the way sunlight filtered through the canopy. I felt exposed, as if the trees themselves could see through me. For a while, we didn't speak. We hiked single file, Eli in front again, just like before. But this time, the distance between us carried weight. Not avoidance, something else. Anticipation, maybe, or fear. Eventually, the silence became too much. "You said you felt something," I said, voice low but steady. "Was that just the moment talking?" He stopped walking, turned around, his face unreadable. "No, it wasn't just the moment." I swallowed. "Then what is it?" Eli exhaled, looking up at the treetops as if the answer might be written there. "It's confusing. I've spent my whole life being sure of what I'm supposed to want, who I'm supposed to love, and then, you." My chest tightened. "I didn't ask for anything, Eli." "I know," he said quickly. "And that's the thing. You didn't. But I feel it anyway. It's not about pressure, it's about honesty. And I think..." He paused, searching for the right words. "I think I've never been fully honest with myself." The vulnerability in his voice hit me like a blow. I took a step closer. "So be honest now." His eyes locked onto mine. "I think I'm drawn to you in a way I've never been drawn to anyone. And it scares the hell out of me." It was more than I expected, more than I dared hope for. But still, I had to ask, what about Tara? He ran a hand through his hair, visibly torn. She doesn't deserve to be dragged through my confusion. I owe her clarity at the very least. I nodded. Then you need to talk to her, before anything else. I will, he said quietly. When we're back. The rest of the hike was quieter, not heavy, but contemplative. The kind of silence where words weren't necessary, because every thought was shared without being spoken. We stopped for water, joked once or twice, but mostly we walked, too. People suspended in the fragile space between what was and what could be. It was late afternoon when we reached the car. The valley spread before us like an old memory, familiar, distant. We threw our packs into the back seat, neither of us eager to get in. Eli leaned against the hood, looking out over the ridge one last time. I don't know where this road goes. Me neither, I said, but I'm here. He turned to me. That's all I need right now. His hand brushed mine, not by accident this time, not hesitant, just enough to say, I feel this too. We didn't kiss, not yet. Maybe not ever. The line between friendship and something more wasn't something either of us could erase in a single weekend, but the possibility now lived in the open air, no longer buried beneath years of silence. I looked at him, really looked, and saw someone who was beginning to unravel a version of himself he'd lived in too long. And I knew that whatever came next, it would be built not on longing or secrecy, but choice. Eli opened the car door and slid into the driver's seat. I followed. As we pulled back onto the highway, leaving the forest behind, the sky ahead stretched wide and pale. The road curved forward, unknown and uncertain, but this time we weren't pretending anymore. The city felt louder when we returned, not just in sound, but in spirit. Buzzing, fast, indifferent. The quiet understanding we'd built in the woods didn't dissolve entirely, but it thinned under the weight of routine. Eli dropped me off without much to say, except a small nod and a text me later. I did. He didn't answer right away. Hours passed, a day, two. I told myself not to expect anything, but expectation lingered anyway. On the third day, he called. I talked to Tara, he said. His voice was tired but clear. It was hard. She cried. I cried. But I ended it. I didn't say anything at first. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel, relieved, guilty, hopeful. She deserves better than my confusion, he added. I told her I needed to figure myself out, and I couldn't do that while pretending. I finally spoke. You didn't have to do that for me. I didn't, he replied. I did it for me. He didn't come over that night, and I didn't ask him to. We were both still trying to understand where the other stood. The lines were no longer blurred, but they weren't clearly drawn either. A week later, we met at our usual bar, the one where we'd spent countless evenings before any of this. The familiarity was both comforting and uncomfortable. We sat at the back booth, shoulders brushing in the dim lighting, the air thick with memory. You've been quiet, he said. I've been giving you space. I didn't ask for space. I know, I replied, but I thought you might need it anyway. He took a long sip of his drink. I thought I did too, but all it did was make me miss you more. I looked at him, trying to read what lay beneath his words. Are you sure you're not just chasing what feels new? No, he said immediately. I'm not chasing anything. I'm standing still. And for once, I'm trying to let myself feel without trying to explain it away. I smiled faintly. That's progress. I want to know what this is, he continued. With you. I don't have a label for it, and maybe that's okay for now. But I want to explore it. Honestly. My chest ached with something that wasn't quite happiness, but something near it. A cautious hope. Then let's take it slow, I said. No pressure. No expectations, just truth. He nodded. That's all I want. The weeks that followed were filled with small, significant moments. A movie night at my place where we fell asleep on opposite ends of the couch but woke up tangled together. A Sunday brunch where he reached across the table and brushed a crumb off my cheek, and we both froze like the moment might break if we moved too fast. Long walks where he asked questions he never used to ask, about my childhood, my fears, my hopes for something more. There was no dramatic kiss, no sudden declarations, just a deepening. But as things grew warmer, so did the risk. One afternoon, we ran into a mutual friend who hadn't seen us together in months. He raised an eyebrow at our closeness and teased Eli about finally settling down with a girl. Eli laughed too quickly. Yeah, something like that. I felt the sting in my chest, like a bruise being pressed. Later, I asked him about it. He looked ashamed. Old reflex. I didn't want to deal with questions. I get it, I said, but that hurt. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm still unlearning a lot of things. I sighed. I don't need you to shout it from the rooftops. I just need to know you're not ashamed of me. I'm not, he said firmly. I'm ashamed of the time I wasted pretending. That moment, quiet, raw, became another turning point. Slowly, Eli began to drop the shields. We stopped, hiding. We went to dinner, just the two of us, in places where people could see. He introduced me to his sister as someone important. And one night, as we stood in my doorway after a long walk, he leaned in and kissed me. Soft, slow, certain. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't a movie scene. It was better. It was real. We still had hard days. Eli still struggled sometimes with who he used to be, who he was becoming. But now, he let me in during those moments, instead of shutting me out. One night, curled, up together on my couch, he asked, "Do you ever think about how we started? That hike?" "All the time." He chuckled. I thought it'd just be a weekend with my best friend, and instead... You found something you didn't know you were looking for, I finished. He looked at me. No, I found someone. I thought, rested my head against his shoulder. The silence that followed was different from all the silences before. Not awkward, not hesitant. Just full. Of understanding. Of quiet joy. Of something we could finally name, even if we didn't say it out loud. It hadn't started as love. It had started as confusion, as restraint, as unspoken longing. But somewhere between the trail and the city, between who we were and who we dared to be, something changed. We chose truth. We chose each other. And though betrayal had once seemed inevitable, in expectations, in assumptions, in what we owed to others, what remained was something unexpected.